She's on it.
It was a warm Saturday afternoon in late spring, and traffic flowed steadily along I-65 in central Tennessee.
That's correct.
The sun beamed brightly over the smooth stretch of highway that curved past rolling hills and farmland. Tucked behind the wheel of a silver Honda Accord was Judge Camille Brooks, a respected federal judge for the Middle District of Tennessee. That day, she wasn't in her robe or courtroom. She was simply Aunt Camille, on her way to her niece's wedding in the small city of Spring Hill, just south of Nashville. Dressed in a soft lavender dress with a matching shawl, her appearance didn't draw any attention. No driver would have guessed that this calm, composed black woman in her early 50s was one of the highest-ranking judges in the state. She had chosen not to bring any government vehicle or personal security. Her life had always been built on simplicity, dignity, and faith in justice. As she approached the town of Wilton, about 30 minutes from her destination, she noticed something strange. A makeshift roadblock had been set up along the highway, with orange cones narrowing the lanes. Flashing police lights blinked ahead. Several patrol cars were parked at odd angles across the road, and a few officers stood in the middle of the lane waving drivers to the side. Camille slowed her car and followed the hand signal of one officer, pulling to a complete stop on the gravel shoulder. She rolled down her window. A white police officer wearing mirrored sunglasses and a tight jaw approached. His name tag read, Sergeant Brent Collier. Behind him, two deputies stood with arms crossed, watching silently. "Where you headed, ma'am?" Sergeant Collier asked sharply, barely glancing at her. "To my niece's wedding," Camille replied calmly, offering a polite smile. "Hi, friends. Please click that subscribe button. Your support means the world to me. Hit that subscribe button to stay connected. That way, you'll never miss a moment whenever we drop more life-changing stories. I would love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments so we can send a big thank you your way. Your presence here is truly a blessing. I love you all. Let's continue." Collier squinted at her. "Uh-huh. You got an invitation on you?" Camille blinked. "I don't think that's necessary, officer. I'm not sure what this stop is for, but I haven't done anything wrong." He ignored her answer and looked into her back seat. "You know, you were going 5 over the limit back there, and I didn't see a seatbelt across your shoulder properly." "I was wearing my seatbelt," she replied, "and I was driving under 60. Collier chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, I say you weren't, so that's a citation. Speeding and seatbelt violation." Camille's voice remained even. "I respectfully disagree, officer." That's when something shifted. Collier's smile vanished. "You disagree?" He looked at the younger deputy beside him. "You hear that, Mitchell? She's telling us our job." The deputy laughed under his breath. "Lady, you need to learn some respect. Around here, when the police stop you, you listen," Collier snapped. He grabbed his citation pad but didn't start writing. Instead, he stepped closer to Camille's window, leaning into her space. "Let me see your license and registration." Slowly, Camille handed him both. As he looked at her name, his brows narrowed. "Camille Brooks. From Nashville?" "Yes." He handed the documents to a deputy without looking. "Run it." As she waited, Camille felt the rising tension. The second deputy circled her car, kicking at one of her tires. Her hands gripped the wheel and she resisted the instinct to speak. She knew exactly what was happening, an abuse of power, but she also knew that revealing who she was would change everything. She wanted to see how far they'd go when they thought they were just dealing with another ordinary woman. The first deputy returned and whispered something to Collier. Collier raised his voice again. "Step out of the vehicle." "On what grounds?" Camille asked quietly. "Don't test me," he snapped. "Resisting already, huh? That's another charge." Without waiting, he yanked open the door. "Get out now." Camille stepped out slowly, her posture calm, eyes steady. Collier grabbed her arm roughly and pulled her toward his patrol car. "You're under temporary detainment while we finish our check," he said, mocking. Camille winced. "That's unnecessary." "You'll tell us what's necessary," he sneered. Too much attitude for someone breaking the law. One of the deputies opened the back door of the patrol car. Camille looked straight at Collier and said, "You're making a serious mistake." That only made him angrier. "You threatening me?" "No," she said, "just stating a fact." Behind them, her car sat peacefully on the shoulder, untouched, undamaged, but that would change soon. The third officer, a young deputy with a buzz cut, walked up and said, "What's the charge, Sarge?" "Speeding, improper seatbelt, resisting instructions, possible disorderly conduct." "Copy," the deputy nodded. Camille said nothing. Her silence wasn't fear, it was observation. She'd presided over civil rights cases. She knew abuse when she saw it. What shocked her now was how casually it unfolded. There was no fear, no hesitation in these men. Just confidence that no one would stop them. As the patrol car drove off with her inside, Camille sat upright, hands folded. She was a judge in federal court, but now she was just another black woman being detained for no reason on a back road in Tennessee. They didn't even ask why. At the Wilton police station, things only escalated. "Look who we brought in," Collier shouted as they walked her through the door. "A troublemaker who doesn't know how to follow rules." Several other officers looked up, but no one questioned anything. They'd seen it before. Camille was placed in a chair against the wall while Collier filled out the intake form. "What's your name?" he asked again. She paused, then answered flatly, "Sarah Daniels." He smirked. "Right, real creative. Address? North Nashville. You got someone who can come bail you out?" "No," she said. "I don't." He leaned over and said, "You know, you make it worse for yourself by acting tough. People like you think they're smarter than the badge, but you're all the same." He walked over to a cell door and barked, "Put her in holding. We'll process her when we get around to it." Inside the cell, Camille sat on a cracked bench between two other women. Both young, both silent, both worn down. One of them asked, "What did they say you did?" Camille just shook her head. "Doesn't matter." She studied the ceiling, the peeling paint, the flickering light, the smell of old sweat and metal bars. If this was happening to her, someone with status, education, and authority, then what was happening to women with no voice at all? Out in the booking area, Collier was laughing. "Write her up for disturbing the peace too. We'll pile it on. See how long she stays quiet." One deputy hesitated. "We don't really have anything solid, Sarge." Collier waved him off. "Since when do we need solid? This is Wilton." In that moment, Camille realized something else. They weren't hiding their behavior, because no one had ever made them. Suddenly, a door opened in the station lobby. A man in a different uniform walked in. Dark blue, more formal. Tall, with salt and pepper hair. His badge read, Captain Ellis Rayburn. "What's going on in here?" he demanded. The room fell silent. "Captain," Collier said quickly, "just dealing with a non-compliant woman we picked up on Highway 431, speeding and resisting." Rayburn looked at Camille sitting in the cell. He frowned. "What's her name?" "She claims it's Sarah Daniels," Collier replied. "Probably fake." Rayburn narrowed his eyes. He didn't say anything at first, but something about the woman's posture didn't sit right. She wasn't angry. She wasn't scared. She looked patient, calculating. He pointed to a deputy. "Move her to the side cell. I want to speak with her myself." "But sir," Collier started. "I said I'll handle it," Rayburn barked. Camille was moved again, this time to a smaller, colder room. No bench, just concrete and steel. She sat down again, watching, waiting. Outside, a voice called out, "Captain, sir! You need to see this. There's a convoy pulling up." Rayburn walked outside, followed by Collier. Dark SUVs with government plates rolled to a stop in front of the building. Collier's face turned pale. "What is this?" he whispered. A man in a black suit stepped out of the lead vehicle, flanked by federal agents. His voice rang through the air. "Who is in charge here?" "I am." Captain Rayburn stepped forward. The man held up a badge. "Deputy U.S. Attorney Benjamin Cross." "Where is the woman you arrested this afternoon?" Collier stumbled over his words. Sir, she was brought in for... Was she read her rights? Do you have legal cause for the arrest? We thought she was... The attorney didn't wait. Bring her to me. Now. Rayburn nodded. Right away, sir. When Camille Brooks stood before him moments later, the station stood still. The deputy attorney asked gently, Ma'am, can you please tell me your full name? And for the first time since her detainment, she smiled and replied clearly, Judge Camille Brooks, Federal District Court of Tennessee. The entire Wilton police station went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop as those 6 words hung in the air like a hammer. Judge Camille Brooks, Federal District Court of Tennessee. The Deputy U.S. Attorney, Benjamin Cross, slowly turned his head toward Sergeant Collier, whose face had gone pale like paper. Cross said nothing for a moment. He didn't have to. The weight of the mistake was already crashing down on everyone in the room. Camille stood tall, her calm presence cutting through the thick fog of shame and fear swirling around the officers. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't look smug. She just waited. Cross took a slow breath and stepped forward. Judge Brooks, I sincerely apologize for everything that has happened to you today. She nodded lightly. Let's not waste time. I want to see the reports they wrote. Every false word, every fabricated charge. Cross looked at Captain Rayburn and ordered, Get the file. Rayburn rushed to the desk and picked up the thin folder marked Daniel Sarah. He opened it and winced. Inside were handwritten citations for speeding, improper seatbelt use, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and disturbing the peace, none of which had a single piece of evidence to back it up. Cross flipped through the pages and handed the file to Camille. She skimmed it quietly. So this is what justice looks like in Wilton? She asked coldly. Sergeant Collier finally spoke up. Judge Brooks, I didn't know who you were. Camille looked him dead in the eyes. That's the point. The room went still again. You treated me this way because you thought I was powerless. Just another black woman you could rough up, intimidate, humiliate, and throw in a cage. You didn't ask for my name. You didn't follow protocol. You didn't care. Why? Because you knew no one ever stops you. She walked slowly toward him. Collier stepped back instinctively. And if I hadn't stayed silent, hadn't let it play out, I wouldn't have believed just how far you're willing to go to cover your lies. You wrote false charges in ink, and your deputies stood by and said nothing. Captain Rayburn interrupted. Judge Brooks, I had no idea what was happening until... She held up her hand. I know, Captain. You may not have started it, but you've allowed it. Your silence is complicity.
I need your expertise on it.
Cross turned to Rayburn and said, She's right. This goes deeper than one man. Then he turned to Camille again. We need a statement from you. I'll personally initiate an investigation into this entire department. Camille took a deep breath. There's more. It's not just Collier. That third deputy? The one who kicked my tire and laughed as I was pushed around? His name badge read B. Harper. And there's the one who said, We'll teach her respect. You need to look into all of them. Cross nodded and turned to Rayburn. Pull their files. I want all their patrol logs, complaints, traffic stops, and internal reviews from the past 3 years. Rayburn obeyed without hesitation. Meanwhile, word of the federal presence had started to spread outside. Local reporters showed up. Neighbors peeked through shop windows. Someone started live streaming from across the street. Camille was led to a private office and offered a bottle of water, which she gently declined. She took a seat at the desk and began writing her formal statement. Each word she wrote carried the weight of decades, not just her own, but those of countless others who had been silenced by uniforms and badges and fear. She detailed everything: the traffic stop, the fabricated charges, the excessive force, the threats, the refusal to state her rights, the humiliating holding cell, the manufactured citations. She wrote it with clarity, grace, and fire. When she was done, she handed the pages to Cross. That's my statement. Thank you, Judge Brooks, he said sincerely. This is going to change a lot. She gave him a faint smile. That's the idea. Back in the booking area, Collier sat hunched on a bench, his hands twitching. His badge felt heavier than ever. He looked up as two federal agents entered the station. "Sergeant Brent Collier," one agent said. "You're being placed under arrest for false imprisonment, abuse of authority, civil rights violations, and filing fraudulent charges." Collier started to protest, but his voice cracked. Wait. Listen, this isn't just me. You think I'm the only one?" The agent stopped. Collier stood slowly, face flushed with panic. "You think I ran this department alone? We've been doing this for years. Red light stops, ticket quotas, fake charges, harassment, and everybody's been in on it. I'm not taking this fall alone." He turned and pointed at two other officers behind the desk. "Ask them. Ask Captain Rayburn. Ask the sheriff's office, too. You think it stops with me?" Camille, standing near the hallway, heard every word. She stepped closer. "Then give us names," she said plainly. Collier laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you want names? I'll give you names, but I want a deal." Cross stepped forward. "You're not in a position to negotiate." Collier's eyes darted around the room. He knew he was done, but if he was going down, he wasn't going alone. "I'll give you everything. Text messages, emails, recordings. We've got a Dropbox folder full of fake citations and arrests. Half the department signed off on it. But I want full immunity." Camille stepped in front of Cross. "Absolutely not." Collier glared at her. "Then this whole thing burns and I go quiet." Camille didn't flinch. "We don't negotiate with people who destroy lives for sport." Cross leaned toward him. "You'll cooperate, or you'll face federal prison, without protection." Collier's shoulders dropped. He had no more cards to play. "All right," he muttered. "I'll talk." The next 48 hours were like a tidal wave. Federal agents moved quickly, records were pulled, emails searched, patrol footage was reviewed, anonymous complaints that had been buried suddenly resurfaced. Traffic stop data was reanalyzed, and just as Collier promised, the rot went deeper than anyone had guessed. There were over 300 questionable arrests in just 3 years, dozens of fines without citations, evidence of coerced confessions, fabricated police reports, even photos of beat-up suspects who had never seen a judge. The corruption wasn't limited to the Wilton Police Department. The county sheriff's office had participated in several joint operations where suspects were lost in the system for hours without legal access. Deputies had thrown away body cam footage or turned off their cameras entirely. Some officers even bragged in text threads about how easy it was to get away with it. The district attorney's office had quietly looked the other way. Reports marked inconclusive or dismissed were never reviewed again. Internal affairs didn't exist, and when it did, it was just a desk with a filing cabinet that no one opened. Benjamin Cross personally brought in a federal oversight team to manage the town's entire law enforcement network. A task force of investigators and civil rights attorneys descended on Wilton like a wave of accountability. The town had never seen anything like it. By the third day, 14 police officers, 6 sheriff's deputies, and 2 assistant district attorneys had been placed on administrative leave, pending criminal charges. Camille Brooks watched it all quietly from the side, never seeking the spotlight. Her mission wasn't revenge. It was justice. It was protection for those who had been hurt and forgotten. She went back to her temporary chambers in Nashville and opened the stack of letters that had started to pour in. Some were typed, some were written in shaky handwriting, but they all said the same thing. "Thank you for standing up." Outside of Wilton, media vans began parking in rows. CNN, NBC, CBS, even international reporters showed up. "Federal judge exposes small-town corruption" was the headline across every major network. Camille gave one brief statement to the press. "Justice only works when no one is above the law, not even those who wear the badge. This is not just about me, it's about every person who was silenced and never got to tell their story." Her voice was firm, clear, steady. Then she stepped away from the microphones and let the task force continue its work. Meanwhile, in Wilton, the streets felt different. Some people were angry, mostly those connected to law enforcement who refused to believe the truth. But most people were relieved. They had lived in fear for too long. Now, something real was finally happening. Local residents began showing up at the courthouse, offering testimony. One by one, people came forward with stories of illegal stops, threats, beatings, and fines they never understood. A single woman's silence had cracked open an entire wall of injustice. In the words of one local preacher who spoke at a Sunday vigil, Judge Brooks didn't walk in shouting. She walked in listening, and in her silence, she gave power back to the people. Everything changes when the fire hits home. For weeks after the courtroom incident, Judge Daniel Carter didn't walk the same. The experience had carved something into his soul, something heavy and painful, a truth too loud to ignore. The jail cell, the dehumanization, the casual cruelty from the officers. It was all still fresh in his bones. But instead of letting it break him, he used it to dig deeper into the system. Every night, long after court was closed and the courthouse emptied, Daniel stayed behind. He'd comb through sealed reports, complaint records, and past misconduct claims buried under bureaucracy. He wasn't just looking for what happened to him. He was looking for a pattern, and the deeper he went, the clearer it became. What happened to him wasn't rare, it was routine, especially for people without a title, without influence, without protection. His clerk, Maria, walked into his chambers one evening and found him surrounded by open files. "You haven't gone home yet?" she asked softly. He didn't even look up. "They've buried too many lives under these papers." Maria stepped forward. "You're not just looking for justice anymore, are you?" Daniel looked at her, eyes tired but focused. "No, I'm looking for change." Daniel knew the risks. Judges weren't supposed to take sides publicly, especially not against law enforcement. The legal system survived on appearances, and a judge breaking that illusion could crumble the whole house. But Daniel wasn't concerned about image anymore. He'd lived the injustice, felt it in his gut. And now he had a voice to speak for those who didn't. He began speaking anonymously to a local investigative journalist named Leah Brooks, someone he trusted with his life. She had built a reputation in Portland, Oregon, for digging up stories others were too afraid to chase. Leah's eyes widened as she reviewed the documents Daniel had smuggled out to her. "You're telling me these officers, the same ones who arrested you, have at least 12 excessive force complaints between them, and nothing happened?" Daniel nodded. "Not even suspension. In most cases, they were promoted." Leah shook her head. "This is a bombshell." "No," Daniel corrected her. "This is normal. That's the tragedy." Making it personal. As the articles began to publish, anonymously quoting a high-ranking judicial source, the pressure began to build. Quiet warnings were whispered to Daniel behind closed doors. "You should stop talking," a fellow judge told him over coffee. "You're poking a hornet's nest." "I'm not afraid of hornets," Daniel said. "I'm afraid of silence." The mayor's office called. So did the chief of police, all offering friendly conversations with veiled threats. "Judge Carter," the chief said over the phone, "I respect what you went through, but airing the city's dirty laundry only fuels more division." Daniel replied calmly, "Maybe that laundry needs to be aired before the whole house stinks." Still, the pressure wasn't just political, it was personal. One morning, he woke up to find his car vandalized, the word "traitor" spray-painted across the hood. A brick had shattered the windshield. No cameras, no witnesses. Daniel stared at the wreck silently. "Should we report it?" Maria asked. He shook his head. "It's already reported in the system, every time it fails someone." The stories ignited public outrage. Leah's reports, with Daniel's evidence behind them, showed a picture too corrupt to ignore. In 1 week, 3 separate protests were held outside City Hall. More people came forward with their own stories of wrongful arrests, racial profiling, and police intimidation. The city of Portland, once known for its calm vibe and green parks, now felt like a powder keg. One night, after giving a private interview to a national news network, Daniel received a call from his younger brother, Elijah, a small business owner and father of 3. "You're brave, man," Elijah said, "but you're playing with fire." I know. Just promise me you're being careful. Not everyone plays fair. Daniel paused. I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm just tired of pretending this system is okay. I hear you, Elijah said, and I'm proud of you. But don't forget you've got people who love you. Daniel hung up and sat alone in the quiet, the weight of both responsibility and fear settling into his chest. The police union fired back. They accused the media of bias. They released a statement calling the anonymous source unethical, dishonest, and motivated by personal vendetta. The union's president even went on air, claiming these stories were nothing more than political theater. Then, a false rumor spread online that Daniel had orchestrated his own arrest as a publicity stunt. Though absurd, it gained traction. Right-wing blogs and social media posts began attacking him relentlessly. His past cases were being scrutinized, his integrity questioned. Maria walked in with a folder of hate mail and threats. You can't even read these, she said, voice shaking. They're disgusting.
I need your expertise on it.
Daniel looked up. They don't scare me. They prove we're close to something real. But at what cost?
That's correct.
He stood and looked out the window at the city below. At the cost of truth, and it's worth it. After weeks of chaos, it was Leah's fourth article that cracked the case wide open. It revealed that several officers involved in Daniel's arrest were under an internal investigation that had mysteriously been halted. The documents showed evidence tampering, coercion of witnesses, and a blatant cover-up of excessive force complaints. Public outcry exploded. State officials demanded an independent federal review, and under growing pressure, Daniel made the boldest move yet. He revealed his identity as the anonymous source in an open letter published in the Portland Daily News. It read, "My name is Judge Daniel Carter. I am the man who was unlawfully detained and humiliated by the very system I have sworn to uphold. I chose to stay silent, but silence is a form of betrayal, not just to the law, but to humanity. I can no longer allow my robe to be used as a blindfold. If justice matters, then we must face the rot within our own walls. No more pretending, no more hiding." The letter went viral. National media picked up the story. Some praised him, others condemned him, but no one could ignore him anymore. The governor of Oregon ordered a state-level audit of Portland's police department. Several officers were suspended. A new oversight committee was formed, with citizens included. Daniel was offered a seat. He declined. "I'm not doing this to gain position," he said. "I'm doing it so this never happens to someone else again." His days remained difficult. There were still threats, still sideways glances at the courthouse. Some colleagues turned cold, but others, quietly, thanked him. One veteran judge, known for keeping his head down, placed a note on Daniel's desk. "You did what I was too afraid to do. Thank you." Daniel didn't smile. He just folded the note and put it in his coat pocket. With time, the noise began to settle. Not because the system was fixed, far from it, but because Daniel had shifted something. A federal judge standing up, not as a symbol of power, but as a victim who fought back. That carried weight. It changed the conversation. One day, he walked back into the same courtroom where it all began. A young defendant, clearly nervous, stood before him. She was shaking, trying to explain why she had run from a routine traffic stop. Daniel looked at her gently and said, "It's okay. You don't have to be afraid in this courtroom." She looked up, eyes wide. "I promise," he said again, "not here." Judge Carter stood tall in the packed federal courtroom in Tallstone. The room was hushed, waiting for his final judgment. After months of emotional testimony, mountains of evidence, and media frenzy, the case had reached its boiling point. The evidence was overwhelming. Secret payouts, falsified police reports, destroyed body cam footage, planted drugs, and decades of institutional silence. He glanced at the officers on trial, faces pale, eyes lowered. Some had broken down and confessed, others denied everything. But their silence, their refusal to protect the people they swore to serve, had spoken volumes. Judge Carter's voice was calm but thunderous. This court finds the defendants guilty on all counts. The evidence shows not only corruption, but a betrayal of the very trust that forms the foundation of our justice system. We are not only punishing crimes committed, we are also sending a message. Justice is not blind. Justice sees, hears, and will rise when the people need it most. As the gavel slammed down, gasps, tears, and applause erupted from the public gallery. Carter knew what would come next, the backlash. And it came hard: hate mail, threats, and even pressure from inside the federal judicial system itself. Some high-ranking officials believed he had gone too far, digging too deep, shaking too many foundations. One night, while driving home, a black SUV tailed him for miles. Another time, someone tried to hack into his computer at the courthouse. But by now, Carter had expected all of it. He had nothing to hide and everything to protect. It wasn't just about the corrupt officers anymore. It was about the broken system that had protected them. The thin blue wall, the code of silence, the brotherhood that turned into a gang when unchecked. In Tallstone, change was beginning. Quiet, painful change. The city launched a Truth and Reconciliation panel. Citizens were allowed to speak publicly about their experiences with the police, good and bad. Some cried, others raged, and still others, including older residents, had stories that stunned even the most seasoned reporters. A new police chief was appointed, a woman named Angela Knox, known for her integrity, transparency, and zero tolerance for cover-ups. She immediately suspended several officers, launched a community partnership task force, and mandated weekly town halls with the public. Most important of all, the people of Tallstone started believing in the justice system again. It was slow, but it was real. Judge Carter began getting letters from strangers. "Thank you for not being afraid. You gave me hope again. I was scared to speak, but now I will." These letters kept him going. Not the headlines, not the awards, just the truth that people were finally being heard. Months later, Judge Carter received a surprise call. The White House. The president wanted to meet him. In the Oval Office, the president, flanked by senior staff, shook his hand. "What you did in Tallstone was courageous, Judge Carter. We want your help in designing a national policy for whistleblower protection, judicial oversight, and law enforcement accountability." It was surreal, but Carter didn't let it go to his head. He wasn't a hero. He was a man who had been broken, humiliated, and who had chosen to stand anyway. He accepted the request, not for recognition, but to make sure what happened in Tallstone wouldn't happen again elsewhere. Through it all, Carter's wife, Elena, and their 2 children remained his greatest anchor. There were days when he'd come home, lay on the couch, and stare at the ceiling in silence. She would just hold his hand and say, "You're doing the right thing, Sam." One night, his teenage daughter, April, sat beside him and whispered, "Dad, I want to be a lawyer too, like you. I want to fight for people who don't have anyone." That moment broke him and rebuilt him. He knew then that legacy wasn't about awards or buildings named after you. Legacy was what you planted in others. Judge Carter eventually wrote a book, The Courtroom and the Cage: My Journey Through Justice and Injustice. It was raw, personal, and honest. He wrote about the sting of being handcuffed by people he trusted, about the humiliation of being treated like a criminal, about the agony of knowing that if he hadn't been a federal judge, he might have disappeared into the system just like so many others. The book became a bestseller, not because it was sensational, but because it was real. It helped open more investigations across the country, encouraged other judges and officers to speak up, and even became mandatory reading in some police academies. After years of service, Carter stepped down from the bench, not in defeat, but in purpose. He transitioned into mentoring young lawyers, teaching at a law school, and advocating for judicial reform nationwide. One afternoon during a lecture at a university, a young black student raised his hand. "Judge Carter, after everything you went through, was it worth it?" Carter paused. "Yes," he said, "because silence doesn't save you, but truth, Truth may cost you everything, but it sets others free. Legacy etched in stone and spirit. Years later, in the heart of Tallstone, a statue was unveiled. Not of Judge Carter, but of a blindfolded child holding the scales of justice with one hand and a torn badge in the other. The plaque read, "To those who risked everything for what is right, we see you." Judge Carter stood in the crowd, holding Elena's hand, tears in his eyes. He didn't need a monument. His greatest reward was watching a city wake up and choose justice, no matter how messy or painful. And in a quiet voice, he whispered to himself, "They tried to break me, but they built something better instead." Moral lesson: always treat people nicely. You will never know when good attitude will save you. Hi friends, please click that subscribe button. Your support means the world to me. Hit that subscribe button to stay connected. That way, you'll never miss a moment whenever we drop more life-changing stories. I would love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments so we can send a big thank you your way. Your presence here is truly a blessing. I love you all. See you on the next one.